Hi, I'm Brian Lord with Nonboard Board here with Leah Glover Hayes, and we are doing a video on how to do interviews. So the biggest overall thing, I talked to a guy, Ross Schaefer, who actually has done interviews. He actually used to have a show that competed with Johnny Carson and some others. And one of the things, the big key he said in doing interviews is when you're doing an interview, he asked Johnny Carson, how have you stayed in this business so long? He goes, I always made sure that whoever I was interviewing was the star. I was never the star of the show. So the big thing to remember is that whoever you're interviewing is the star. Awesome. So you always want to make sure they can be seen, heard, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And so I'm interviewing Leah here. She's already done a few of these, but one of the things you always want to do is you want to make the focus on them. So one of the first things too is if there's a big height difference, like right now I'm actually standing with my legs apart. So here's how it normally would be, but we kind of do this. And so there's other things you can do too to make sure the focus is on them. A lot of times you can have kind of this wavy thing going. So what I do is I tell people, hey, if it's all right with you, I'm just going to put my hand like lightly on your shoulder right here, or if it's somebody you're a little closer to in height, lightly on your arm, something like that, to make sure that there's not a whole lot of this going on. And so that's one of the things you do is make sure that the focus is on them. So I'll also, when I'm doing these interviews, I'll also make sure the camera, so it looks like I'm looking at you at home, but really I'm looking at the camera here. And so once I ask a question, when I give an answer, I'll say, so Leah, how often are you interviewed? And I'll do this little number right here. Okay. So the focus goes on them. And so it's awkward for Leah here just because she's not getting a whole lot. So one of those things is, so first you want to make sure they're seen. You also want to make sure there's an interesting background. And it doesn't have to be interesting. It can tell something like, if people see this, they're like, oh, that's Nashville. I see the Batman building up there. So, but you don't want to have something that's incredibly distracting back here, because this person is the star of the interview. You also want to make sure they're heard. So, and that's actually probably even more important. So when you're holding these out, even if, like right now, I'm holding the iPhone, but if somebody else is interviewing, sometimes they'll hold it and it'll be so far away, the mic isn't picking up. Also, we're in a quiet room right now, so there's not a lot of distraction, but you also want to make sure that you go and you find a place with fewer distractions, fewer noise. If it is a really loud room and that's your only option, you're going to have to get it this close. Okay. The other thing too is that we are closer than is normally comfortable. So again, this is an interview that's like a conversation, but it's not a conversation. So I'm actually, very, close. I mean, it's this close away from Leah, and of course we're looking at the camera, so it's not too obnoxious. But it's closer than is normally comfortable for people when you're doing interviews.
Okay. This is a little close.
Yes, it is a little close. But this is a public area here, so we're okay. One of the other things too is some of these things you do ahead of time. Okay. So like one of the questions Lee asked, where do I look? Where do I look for this? Okay. And one of the things, again, Ross Schaefer had this great tip for me, and he's a professional, is you kind of do the swinging door type thing. So with me as the interviewer, there's two different things. So you as the person who's being interviewed, you just ask me, where do I look? Well, you can look at the camera here. You can look at the right here. So you can talk. This is your audience right here.
Hello.
Hello. You can also talk to me some.
Okay.
With me as the interviewer, it's a little bit different. So I may do the introduction where I'm looking at the camera right here, but most of the time the focus is on you. Again, you're the star.
Okay.
So when I do the question, I'll ask the question. You want to ask short questions and have them give longer answers, because again, this person's a star, not you. So when you ask the questions, you turn and you talk to Leah. Okay, so Leah, what's your favorite part about volunteering? And then you you put the focus on her, okay. With the person you're interviewing, with the camera. Both, and I'm looking here, also focusing here too. Okay. It's a little subtle thing that you don't often notice if people are looking at it. Okay. But it's a way to do these interviews with the iPhone here.
Gotcha.
All right, so that's part one. We'll come back with part two.
Awesome.